Hello， 大家好，欢迎收听科技浪，我是主持人哈利。科技浪是一个白话跟你聊科技的 podcast， 希望可以用简单易懂但是又深入的方式带你了解时下最火的科技话题。好，那么上礼拜的 Computex 呢，我其实有2个特殊的行程没有跟大家说到。第一个就是我受到高通的邀请去参观了一下他们的展区。那他们这个展区呢，其实不是在南港展览馆里面啦，是在 W Hotel 里面，所以说你如果去逛展的没有看到，其实也是很正常的。那整个展区主要是在展示高通的 Snapdragon X 系列处理器，就是他们的笔电的处理器，它能做到的一些事情，它的一些特点，这样很多的 demo 都还蛮有趣的。那我的第2个特殊行程呢，就是我们这次科技浪有幸可以采访到高通的资深副总裁暨行销长 Don McGuire，算是我们采访系列应该是采访过最高层的一个人物了。那今天这整个访谈的内容呢，全部都会放在本集的最后给大家听但是在那之前呢，我想说我就可以跟大家分享一下我在高通展区我看到的学到的一些事情。那这边我主要是有3个重点想跟大家分享啦。第一个重点是关于 Snapdragon X 系列处理器的原生软体支援，这边有蛮多的进展。然后第2个重点是关于它的续航力，因为我们知道这个 X 系列处理器它最有名的就是它的续航力真的是跟鬼一样超强的。但是这边我原本就知道这一点了，但是看完了这一次的展区呢，我其实对于这一点又有了更深入的一些理解。然后第3个重点是关于 NPU 这边的进展。我们知道这个高通的 Snapdragon X 系列处理器，它身为一个 AI PC 的处理器呢，它里面除了 CPU 跟 GPU 以外，还有一个专门拿来运算 AI 的运算单元，叫做 NPU Neural Processing Unit。那这个 NPU 算是可以说是 AI PC 的一个最大特色之一嘛。那我相信很多人可能都很好奇说，我们大家喊 AI PC 喊了1年多了，这个 NPU 现在具体来说到底可以做到哪些事情？好，那这边也想跟大家分享一下。那首先我们就从这个第1个重点开始好了，就是原生软体支援的部分。那你如果一直以来都有在 follow Windows PC 的处理器的话，你这边应该立刻就知道我在讲什么了。但是就是以防你不知道，我这边还是详细的介绍一下我这边指的所谓原生支援在讲的是什么事情。那首先，目前市面上你能买到的这些 Windows 思维系统的笔电，它里面的处理器最主要就是来自于3家厂商 Intel、AMD 跟高通嘛。那 Intel 跟 AMD 他们使用的处理器都是 X86 的架构，或是英文里面讲作这个 X86 的架构。那高通的处理器使用的是 ARM 的架构。所以架构上是不一样的。那具体来说，这边指的架构呢，是所谓的指令集架构。它定义了你的处理器有哪一些指令可以处理，然后要怎么样子去处理这些指令。整个资料要怎么样子去流动，这样就包括像是一个指令，可能最基本的像加法的指令，你要怎么样子去加，然后资料怎么动，然后减法的指令啊，复制资料的指令啊等等。那 X86 跟 ARM 的架构，他们整个指令集里面指令的数量以及指令的设计，就是这些处理器要怎么样子去处理这些指令呢？其实是有蛮大的不同的。总体来说，这个 ARM 的指令集是比较精简的，就可能指令的数量比较少，然后每一个指令呢也是比较单纯的。那 X86 可能就会更加复杂一点。那这也是为什么通常 ARM 架构的处理器呢，它都有比较省电，然后比较效率高的特点。那 X86 处理器则是比较强大，但是同时也耗能很多。那其实在最一开始呢， Windows PC 的市场基本上完全是被 X86 架构给独占的。主要就是 AMD 跟Intel 在做这些处理器嘛，那2个都是 X86 的架构。那 ARM 的处理器在 Windows 这边一直没有办法取得成功，很大的一个原因，很大的问题呢，就是来自于软体的相容性啊。因为绝大多数的软体都是为这个 X86 的架构做优化的嘛。那你一个为 X86 架构优化的软体，你直接放在 ARM 上面跑，你是没有办法跑的，因为2个处理器讲的语言就是不一样嘛，对不对？他们的整个指令集就完全是不一样的。那在这种情况之下，ARM 的处理器如果还是 要跑为 X86 的处理器去设计的软体的话，它就要跑一个 emulator， 就是一个模拟器，等于是在 ARM 上面模拟一个 X86 的这个架构，X86 的指令集，然后去跑。那当然这种有一个模拟层在中间的这种做法，想当然一定会牺牲掉表现蛮多的嘛。所以说其实一直以来Windows 在 ARM 上面是没有办法跑得很成功，一直到最近这几年，高通推出了他们的 X 系列处理器，也就是我们今天整天要讲的这个处理器啊。这个 X 系列处理器就真的为 Windows on ARM 带来了一个巨大的突破。你甚至可以说，在这系列处理器之前 Windows on ARM 都是一些可能玩具，一些产品的原型，但是 Snapdragon X 系列处理器的这些笔电是真的跟其他 X86 的笔电是可以竞争，非常有竞争力，甚至是我自己本人超级想买的这些笔电。那高通之所以可以取得这样子的成功，也是因为他们跟微软，然后还有一些其他的软体开发商深入的合作，尤其是跟微软这一边，他们一同打造一个叫做 Windows on Snapdragon 的整个平台，是那种一路从比较高层次的这个作业系统一直深入到底层的晶片，这样子非常深入的合作。那我这一次 Computex 有去听 Cristiano Amon， 也就是高通 CEO 的 keynote， 然后当然也有去他们高通的这个展区嘛。那两边其实都有提到他们在原生软体支援这一边的进展哦。好，就是整个 Windows on Snapdragon 这个生态系的这个扩大。那最新的数据其实蛮惊人的哦，就是在2024年一年之中呢，多了3倍的原生 App。目前绝大多数最主流的软体，大家平时最常用到的软体，基本上全部都是原生支援的了，包括这个 Chrome 浏览器嘛，然后 Slack、NordVPN、这个微软Office 系列嘛，对不对？然后 Teams、OBS、剪映、Adobe 系列的一些像什么 Photoshop。全部都是原生支援的。那从使用时间的角度来看的话，其实现在一个 Windows 使用者有 93% 的使用时间都是花在原生的 App 上面。那我自己是从我自己使用的角度去思考了一下，我发现说，其实基本上我在一台轻薄笔电上面要做到的事情，所有的 App 都是原生支援的。对我来说，因为有一些他们现在没有原生支援的 App 是我本来就不会在轻薄笔电上面用到的。就比如说什么这个艾尔登法环，你没有艾尔登法环支援的版本，但是你本来就不会在你的轻薄笔电上面玩嘛，对不对？所以我觉得你买这个轻薄笔电的用途，如果跟我一样，就是可能 travel 的时候，想背一个轻的东西在背包里面，然后随时可以工作，可能去咖啡厅工作一下之类的。那我觉得你买高通处理器的这些笔电呢，应该是不用太担心这个软体不相容的问题啦。那在这种情况之下呢，你其实就可以尽情的享受它带来的超强续航力的优势。这个就是我们刚刚说到这个 ARM 架构跟X86 架构可能最大的区别，就是 ARM 架构比较节能嘛。那这边刚好也是我今天想跟大家聊的第二个重点哦。这些高通的笔电究竟有多节能？它的续航力究竟有多强呢？你看这个 ASUS 它有一个笔电，有一个系列笔电叫 ZenBook 嘛，就是可能算是中阶的文书笔电。这个 ZenBook A14 的这一台用高通 X Elite 处理器的这一台呢，它离线影片播放可以长达32小时，这一台真的是可以说是我现在最想要的轻薄笔电。我只是找不到一个原因去买它，因为我已经有其他台在用了，然后用的好好的。那我如果纯粹买，那就真的是就是单纯花钱。但我是真的有点想买，因为它真的是长得太漂亮了，然后竟然不到1公斤你能想象吗？一个笔电不到1公斤，然后续航力强的跟鬼一样。而且重点是它这个超级强的续航力，当然啦，这32小时是离线影片播放，你实际在使用没办法就是续航到32小时，但是这些数字真的不是讲讲而已。这个高通的 X 系列处理器呢，其实已经上市到现在可能1年左右了。那这1年的期间呢，很多人都买，很多人都用过，网络上也一大堆评测，每一个人你看他们实际评测就知道这是真的，就是这个续航力真的是很恐怖。你能想象你的笔电可能3-4天才充一次电，甚至1个礼拜充一次电吗？如果你没有就是一直每天狂用的话，那高通的展区也看得到这一点。他们有一些在播放 demo 影片的这个笔电呢，他们都是没有插电的，然后就直接让他们摆在那边播，连续播2天。 然后还有好多的电。那第二天晚上就是为了第3天不出状况，保险还是充了一下，但是它其实还是有剩很多的，可能20几%之类的电。那高通的处理器可以做到续航力这么强，原因当然有很多，但是我觉得最主要的原因还是他们主要采用 ARM 的架构嘛。那我刚刚也说了，这个 ARM 的架构它本来就是走比较简单、比较低功耗的这个路线，跟 X86 比起来，最一开始的设计理念就是有差了。那 ARM 的架构还是比较适合这种依赖电池供电的这种机体，像什么手机、平板啊，那现在这些轻薄笔电都是这样嘛。那当然 AMD 跟 Intel 他们身为 X86 的代表人呢，他们近几年也是很努力了，要把 X86 往更低功耗、更高效能这个路线这边走。他们最新推出的这些处理器呢，也都标榜说，其实在这个续航力这边是可以跟 Snapdragon 的处理器媲美的。那这边我自己个人是觉得还不到啦，就这个 Snapdragon 应该还是现在轻薄笔电市场中是效能最高、续航力最强的处理器。然后除了单纯比较续航力以外，还有另外一个很重要的维度要比较，就是不插电的情况之下，效能会不会减？那这边我觉得就是高通处理器有绝对性的优势的地方。我在这次的展场呢，也很明确的看到这一点。他们展场里面就直接放2台笔电在跑测试，一台呢就里面放的就是高通的 X Elite 的处理器，然后另外一台里面放着的是 Intel 他们最新最主打低功耗高续航力的这个 Lunar Lake 架构的 Core Ultra 处理器。那他们用这2台笔电都跑同一个 Geekbench 的这个跑分测试，就是算那个 CPU 跑分嘛。然后同时都跑2种版本，一种是有插电的，一种是没有插电的。那很明显，在这个 Snapdragon 处理器的笔电上面呢，没有插电跟有插电之间的 CPU 跑分是几乎没差的，单核多核都一样。但是 Intel Lunar Lake 这边呢，它的单核在没插电的情况之下，它的 CPU 跑分掉了将近一半，然后多核的成绩呢也掉了30%。那两者之所以会差这么多呢，是因为首先那个一台笔电没有插电的情况之下，单纯用电池供电，它的系统功率通常只会允许差不多15瓦左右嘛。那这个 Lunar Lake 处理器里面，它有分可能比较耗电、比较强大的这个 P Core Performance Core 跟 Efficiency Core 比较省电的嘛。那这个有一些这些 Performance Core 它频率拉高的时候，其实可能光一颗 Performance Core 就会吃掉8到12瓦的这个功率。那它如果可能多个 core 全开整个 CPU 可能瞬间功耗可以冲到什么30-40瓦。那当然这个在使用那个电池的状况之下是绝对达不到的。所以说它在使用电池的情况之下，它必须要降它的 performance。但相比之下，这个 Snapdragon 的处理器呢，他们高通自己研发 CPU 嘛 ，Orion 的核心，那走的就是比较偏低频稳定的运行路线。整个处理器一开始的设计就是能够稳定跑在15瓦以内，所以说他们就算不插电，单纯用电池也可以不用牺牲效能。好，那这些高通处理器它之所以能够续航力这么强，效能这么高，当然除了主要的原因是他们采用 ARM 架构以外呢，它还有另外一个原因，就是有一些 AI 应用可以直接跑在 NPU 上面，不用用到 CPU 或是 GPU。那我们知道这个 NPU 它的能源效率呢是远远高于 GPU 或 CPU 的。但重点来了，这些 AI 应用到底是什么？我觉得这是很多人的疑问嘛。这个 CPU 这个 NPU 最近2年爆红嘛，那很多人都知道 OK 它的能源效率比较高然后它可能是就是有几个 TOPS 这样。但具体来说，这些 NPU 到底能做到什么？我觉得对于蛮多人来说，这个概念是比较模糊的。那我在这一次高通逛展之前呢，其实我对于这个话题也不是很了解。因为其实我自己家里的也有一台那个轻薄笔电是有 NPU 在里面的，但是其实我也不太清楚它到底做到了什么。那我很明确知道的几件事情，可能背景模糊眼部追踪这些事情，我很确定它是跑在 NPU 上。但除此之外，有哪一些其他东西是这其实我真的是不太知道。但我这次进了高通的展区去看了他们很多实际的 demo， 才发现哇， 其实 NPU 现在可以做到的 AI 应用已经非常多了。这跟我之前的理解可能就是说可能 NPU 还要再进步个1-2代啊，然后 AI 模型要再变得更高效一点，压缩的更好一点它才可以真的在做到更多事情。其实不是，就目前来看它 NPU 已经可以做到一些蛮不错的 AI 应用了。像是可能你可以使用 NPU 去帮忙提升你的相机画面的品质，提升这个图像的品质。那也可以使用这个 AI 自动剪辑、AI 自动调音、AI 自动辨识人声等等的应用。那以上这一些听起来其实也不到跟我也不会跟我之前的认知差太多嘛。那这些通常都比较小的 AI 模型嘛。但是现场也有展示生成式 AI 的部分这一块我觉得就是蛮跳脱我之前的认知的就是他们有跑一个 AI agent， 然后还接托 use， 就完全是一个你的离线的 AI agent， 然后跑一个 SLM， 就是小语言模型当做它的大脑的这种有，然后生图的也有就是跑一个 diffusion model 嘛，然后重点是都能够跑到真的实际可以使用的速度。那这边当然也是归功于这个 Qualcomm AI Stack 啦，就是他们高通自己提供的一些 SDK 一些工具可以让开发者做为高通的晶片去做推论的更优化但是我觉得这边很大的一个重点就是，其实你如果可以用 NPU 很高效的去跑一些 AI 助理，那我觉得真的算是一个非常吸引人的 use case。因为你想想，你用 NPU 去跑这些 AI 助理，不只是能耗比较低比较省电，除了这点以外，还有很重要的一点是，你的 CPU 跟 GPU 可以空出来做其他事情啊。就比如说你在打游戏的时候，你的 GPU 可能已经吃满了，但是你又想要有一个 AI 助理可以针对你的游戏给一些意见啊，或者是就是帮你做一些事情啊之类的。那这个时候你的 AI 助理就可以跑在 NPU 上面啊，就可以不会影响到你的GPU 的使用啊。所以我觉得这次看完了高通的 NPU demo，真的是蛮超出我的想象的。然后同时也证明了一件事情，就是 NPU is here to stay。就是 NPU 绝对是有它的用途的，然后它是一个正确的趋势。我觉得有些人现在还是有些人在说就我不懂，就是有一个 NPU 这个那个多出的一个 AI 的运算单元在那边干嘛但是我觉得就是时间一久大家会发现说不行，没有 NPU 因为很多的这种情况之下呢，使用 NPU 才是最正确的。好了，那以上就是简单跟大家介绍我在高通展区这一次看到的3个重点。那当然啦，本集是这个高通赞助节目，然后我前面呢感觉好像就是一直在讲高通的好话，但是我必须跟大家说，我是真心很喜欢这一系列的处理器的，就是因为我现在已经有一个轻薄笔电在那边，然后我觉得我现在要再买一台太浪费了，就我客家精神嘛，所以我没有办法再买一台。但是你如果要我现在挑一台就是轻薄笔电买，我100%会挑那个 ASUS 的那一台，就是 ZenBook A14， 然后是高通处理器的那一台。因为我觉得真的是很赞啊。那当然你如果想要买的这台笔电呢用途之一有包含可能某一个 App， 然后是刚好没有这个目前这个 Snapdragon 没有原生支援的，然后你会大量使用那个 App， 那当然你可能可以需要再三考虑一下。但我觉得这种情况一定是到目前已经是非常少见了因为像我一开始所说的，就现在大部分大家常用的 App 基本上是全部都是有支援原生的嘛，对不对？然后你可能非常少数的 App 现在可能没有支援原生的，你透过这个 emulator 稍微使用一下，你如果不常用的话，其实真的应该都不会有什么太大问题。当然我不敢就是完全保证，但我相信应该是大部分情况是不会有什么问题。那在这种情况之下我觉得你可以认真考虑一下高通的处理器因为就是这个1个礼拜充一次电，你不觉得听起来蛮爽的吗？那当然以上都是我自己的个人想法，我自己的个人建议啦，就是大家在实际去做任何的购买行为之前呢，还是要再三就是自己思考，然后就是可能多问问别人，多问问 ChatGPT， 多上网查一下这样才是最清楚的。 OK， 那接下来我们就要进入我们 Podcast 的第2个环节就是我跟高通的资深副总裁暨行销长也就是这个他们的 CMO Chief Marketing Officer Don McGuire 的访谈。 那 Don 他身为高通的行销长呢，当然他的工作内容就是负责整个品牌的全球行销策略嘛。那当然，他其实是在科技圈里面非常有影响力的一个 CMO 哦。他之前在 Intel， 然后在很多其他科技公司里面服务，当高层，其实行销经验已经超过25年了。那他最近1-2年呢，其实也被富比士杂志评为世界上最有影响力的行销长之一哦。那我们今天的访谈呢，主要分成3个部分。首先，第一个部分我们会先聊聊 marketing， 就是毕竟对象是 Don 嘛，如此就是一个 marketing 的大师在我眼前，我怎么可能不问一些 marketing 的东西？虽然说我们科技浪平时可能比较少讲到 marketing， 但我必须得问的吧。那第二个 part 我会跟 Don 聊到 AI， 这边主要是想听他对于 AI PC、AI 手机目前的发展以及未来的发展、未来的这个愿景这样子。那第3个 part 我会跟 Don 聊到车子那我觉得有些人可能会觉得有点纳闷，就为什么莫名其妙突然聊到车子？但其实高通他们有在做车用晶片啦，就他们有一整个这个 solution 叫做 Snapdragon Digital Chassis， 它是整个车用的整个 platform， 它不只是这个处理器而已，它是整套系统这样子，整个平台。那这边我们就是会聊到这个 Digital Chassis 它可以做到哪些事情可能除了典型的这些车内的一些应用啊、娱乐啊之类的，还有一个很重要的一点，我有深挖蛮多题的一点，就是辅助驾驶跟自动驾驶的 solution。好，那常听科技浪的各位呢，应该也都知道这个 part 是我非常感兴趣的一个部分所以说这边也会跟 Don 今天聊到。好，那本次的访谈呢，因为 Don 他不会说中文，所以说很可惜我们必须得以英文进行。但是你如果比较不熟悉英文的话，你也不用担心，因为我会把本集的英文逐字稿跟它的中文对照全部都放在本集的资讯栏里面除了这个有订阅 Plus 跟 Pro 的人以外呢免费的用户也可以免费看到这个逐字稿的部分。好，那以下就是我跟 Don 的演讲 Enjoy。 Okay, Don, welcome to TechWave.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So we're going to talk a lot about AI today, but before that, since you're the CMO of Qualcomm, I had to ask, what is the most innovative or impactful campaign that you've led at Qualcomm, you think?
Well, I mean, it really depends on the KPI, like what we were trying to achieve from an objective perspective. But I think, if you look at it from a very, very top, which every CMO is sort of responsible for, which is kind of building and nurturing and shepherding, the brands that they oversee. Mm-hmm. I would say the culmination of work on Snapdragon that we've been doing for the past several years that sort of led to, last week us showing up for the first time on Kantar's Brand Z Index of the top global brands. Not only did we break 100, but we came in at number 38. So first time ever Snapdragon has shown up on a brand value index. So I think that's sort of the results and the impact that we're having with all the different work that we're doing. Mm-hmm. And then, sort of different areas, we're obviously really focusing on building the Snapdragon story out within the PC space. All the way to consumer, all the way to point of sale, kind of full funnel. That's the first product category that we've actually been able to do that in, because when consumers walk into a store to buy a PC mm-hmm. or go online, oftentimes the choice that they make is based on the chip inside.
Yep.
It's one of the few product categories where that's the case. Mm. Sometimes you get that on smartphone and some other things, and we hope to make that a thing in more product categories. But definitely historically, the PC business has kind of operated that way. So I think the compute work that we've done, the PC work that we've done over the last probably 8 months or so has been ramping and been exciting. And then our brand partnership work that we've done with Manchester United and Mercedes F1 and some of the other partnerships that we've forged has also been rewarding and impactful, and we've seen amazing ROI from that.
Yeah, the Manchester one is interesting because I've never thought a chip or a platform company collaborating with a football team.
Right.
That's pretty interesting. What's the rationale behind that?
Well, when we were first, we started with how are we going to build brand, right, for Snapdragon across product categories? And my goal is to, kind of make Snapdragon a household name, right? Make it a consumer brand that's kind of rooted in culture, and culturally relevant over time. So you can't just do that through advertising alone. And sometimes you do that by associating yourselves with people's passions in what they experience in their daily lives. And one of those passions is sport. And so when we were looking at the area of sports and exploring, who we could sort of associate ourselves with, one of the sports that would give us the most scale is global football. It is it's the biggest sport in the world. So, when we were looking at that, we decided to then look at what aligns with our brand values for Snapdragon. Premium, positioning. We wanted global scale. We wanted reach. And so when we looked at around the global football landscape, the most premium sort of level of global football is English Premier League, historically. And within English Premier League, the franchise or the club with the broadest reach, the most storied history, brand value alignment, with 1.1 billion fans worldwide, is Manchester United. So that's how we got to United as a partner. We started off small with them, actually. We didn't elevate our partnership to taking the front of shirt until this last year. But the ROI that we saw in our initial partnership gave us the confidence that when they approached us about the opportunity for being on front of shirt, it was we had a head start in developing that analysis and making that decision. So it was a great decision. I think it helped contribute to our debut on Brand Z as well. And we've been measuring it, from launch all the way through to present day. And what we've seen is that of the 1.1 billion Manchester United fans, 80% of them know who we are, that we exist, and sort of what Snapdragon is. And now
that's a lot of people. That's
a lot of people, right? And now we're focusing on building understanding amongst those people that recognize us. What is it that we do? Why is it that we matter? Is that next level? So we're doing that with a combination of all the content and storytelling that we do with the club, also cross-pollinating with our insiders. And
that next level is kind of tricky, right? Because Qualcomm's technology is pretty sophisticated. It's a little hard for general public to understand. And of course, right now with AI, I bet you have a lot of need to communicate AI with the general public as well, right? And AI being such a sophisticated technology, I bet some people don't even understand the difference between cloud and edge, right? So how do you communicate AI to the audience?
Well, I think the best way to communicate anything is sort of through experience. I think, sort of seeing and oftentimes is believing, and using builds relevancy. And so we've got to build out, those use cases have to come, right? I think you could draw a parallel between, when the smartphone first launched, and people were unfamiliar with this idea of apps, right? And then sort of slowly but surely, app by app, people's worlds started to change. How they order food, how they grocery shop, how they buy things, how commerce has changed. And then people now just, naturally go to apps for lots of different things. I think AI is going to kind of follow a similar curve. There's going to have to be use cases that are relevant to people's lives, and people are going to have to get experience with those. And then slowly but surely, it'll just become a natural interface. We have a saying at Qualcomm that we believe AI is the new UI. And we believe that eventually how you interact with your digital spaces, whether it's your phone or your computer or your car, whatever it might be, is going to be more natural, whether it's via voice or some other mechanism. And you're probably going to talk through an agent of some type to kind of get what you need to get done. And so I think step by step we'll get there. I think, again, compelling use cases, people using those use cases, getting used to it, and it becomes more natural, and then it sort of builds upon that. Whether it's kind of on device or in the cloud, how the processing's happening in the background, in some ways doesn't matter as much, as long as the value proposition of that use case is what the end user wants. For example, if they want more privacy, more security, more personalization, those things are going to happen at the edge or on device, because not everything has to go to the cloud. And as technology sophistication improves, more and more LLMs and SLMs and everything are going to be able to be processed on device, as our technology improves as well. So I think that's kind of one area where we see sort of kind of going to develop over the next 24, 36, 48 months, to get to this point where instead of tapping in and out of individual applications, you're going to sort of ask questions or request things to happen, and then that agentic experience is going to then tap into those back-end pieces to deliver on whatever you want, which I think is exciting, right? And then again, whether the processing happens, because it's something big computationally that you need to get done in the cloud, or whether it happens on device, really depends on the use case.
Yeah, I want to get to that in a moment, but first of all, let's talk about right now, right? The use cases right now, because I feel like AI PC and AI phones has been a thing for the past 1.5 years. It's been the thing in the industry. It's in literally every marketing campaign that they run, and Qualcomm's really at the center of it, right? With the actually, arguably, in my opinion, the first AI phone in the market really is the one I'm holding right now. It's the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra, which has a Snapdragon chip in it, right? So, but I feel like there are also skeptics of this, right? So like, a lot of people believe this is the thing, but there are also people saying that, phone companies and computer companies just want another reason to sell us new phones and laptops, right? So I think it all comes down to the use cases. What exactly, from your observation, are the use cases that you see people are doing on their phones and PC with AI right now?
Well, first of all, I think in the case of the phone, AI has been kind of running in the background for years, and it's been doing things. It's been making your experience better, whether you knew it or not. Like, we've been commercializing AI on our chips for like 10 years, right? Our AI engine's been around for a long time. We've talked about it, and it's been making your photos better, and it's been making your audio quality better, and things like that. But you really didn't notice, or you didn't know it was AI doing it. It was sort of just running in the background. Fast forward to Gen AI. Right, where kind of AI was then thrusted into the consumer sort of zeitgeist, and then ChatGPT launches, and all of a sudden now you can ask questions and get answers, and it's quicker than search and better than search, and then the training continued, and it becomes more refined, and it becomes more intelligent, and so the intelligence of AI sort of has kind of skyrocketed, and what it's capable of doing. So I think that if you start with the phone, once Gen AI became a thing, and once sort of there's 100 million users of ChatGPT plus, and people are getting used to sort of this prompt and response type of motion, I think Samsung, for example, kind of capitalized on it first, the best, because they actually came up with some pretty compelling things to thrust AI into the forefront, even around photography as well as other things. For example, Circle to Search, right, is in partnership with ourselves and Google. That is a use case that is super compelling, right? Because it changes your behavior on how you discover things. Because now all you have to do is look at an image. You can just hit your, the AI, the center button, and you can circle it, and it'll tell you, what it is, where it came from, how much it costs, where to buy it, et cetera, et cetera. That's a different way to kind of discover things, right? Versus going into a taskbar and typing a prompt in. I think, so Circle to Search, natural language processing and real-time translation is another area that I think, so these use cases are coming, and I think Samsung's done a really good job of sort of packaging those all up. And what they've saw from the initial launch and even into GS25 is they're seeing not only strong uptake in some of these features, but they're seeing stickiness, which means it's not a novelty. It's like I try it once and then, oh yeah, that was cute, but I'm gonna move on. they actually are finding it useful. So I think in the case of the phone, you've got these core things that are happening, and I think there'll be more things that kind of build on top of that.
What exactly are the features that you guys find are sticky?
I think, stickiness really is driven by what helps your everyday use case be better, or your experience be better. I think those are going to be the stickiest at first. And then I think as people get experience with agents, whether it's a general agent like a Gemini or Perplexity or a ChatGPT, they're finding all sorts of uses, right? To become more efficient, more productive, to get things done. I was in New York City. I asked Perplexity to recommend a restaurant, make a reservation, tell me when I should leave to get there. And it completed all those tasks. That's helpful. So I think when we get to helpfulness, I think that's when stickiness comes. And people will start to use those things. I've talked to people recently who've kind of made their agent, whatever that agent may be, kind of on their home screen instead of a browser on their home screen to go to discover and search things. It's their agent now that they're using to do that. So we're going to see that shift happen. And I think that's what's going to build stickiness. And then I think over time, it'll be less prompt and response, and it'll be more suggestive and anticipatory. So now your agent is understanding your behaviors because you've let it, you've given it permission to, and now it can make suggestions and be proactive versus reactive. And I think that'll be another level of stickiness. And that goes beyond just the phone on any device, really. That's a general comment. But the phone has kind of started out, I think, with some interesting things that are happening with different players, and then I think that same phenomena has to happen across device category, because there'll be different types of use cases, or they'll manifest themselves in different ways, whether you're using a PC or a phone, or whether you're in your car.
Yeah. And you mentioned that in Qualcomm you have a saying AI is going to be the new UI for the future. Can you first elaborate on that and maybe give us a more concrete idea of how exactly is that going to transform the way people use phones and laptop in the future?
Well, again, I think if you look at how people operate their devices today, they tend to go to a vertical application to do things. And what we believe is that if you add this sort of agentic layer on top of that, and it doesn't necessarily mean there's just one agent, maybe there's multiple agents, but that there's this sort of natural language, or this more organic way to communicate with your digital spaces and to interact with them. Yes, it still can be touch, it still can be type, but it also can be voice or some other cue. And just being able to sort of, especially in some circumstances, be able to talk to an agent and have a conversation and be productive and get what you need to get done, not having to type or not having to tap or touch, can be very useful, right? Depending on the environment that you're in. So we believe that this will become sort of the first interface with digital spaces. And then it's not that apps will go away or anything like that, but we believe that people will want to multitask, and instead of having to go in and out, oh, I'm on a shopping site, I really like this sweater. Oh, I'm going to now go check my bank account to see if I have enough money. Oh, then I'm going to go back into the commerce site, and then I'm going to pay with this card, and then I'm going to this, where you can just say, hey, I like this sweater, check my bank account, make the purchase, ship it here. If you can just instruct, all in one sort of thought, that will be helpful and useful, I think, for people.
I need that so badly.
I think everybody would say that they would want that, for sure.
Exactly. But when that happens, right, do you think that AI agent that's doing everything for you, that you serving as a UI for your phone, do you think that's going to be on the cloud or on device? Yeah, because
I think it depends on the use case.
It feels like all the major chatbot apps are trying to do that now. Like ChatGPT is trying to do that. They even have an operator product where it literally does what you said. It buys stuff for you, right? And Gemini also is integrating all of their Google product, Gmail, Calendar to the chatbot. So yeah, is that type of interaction going to be the UI?
Yeah, I mean, I think, right now each one of them has their limitations, right? But I think that the most useful ones will rise to the top. And whether or not whatever it's doing for you happens and stays within your device or within the premise that you're at, whether it's your home or your office, or whether it goes to the public cloud and comes back, really depends on what is it that you're wanting it to do, right? Kind of moving your schedule around and accessing some of the data that's stored on your device, editing photographs and doing those things, that stuff doesn't need to go to the cloud. It's also probably stuff that you want to keep private. Even creativity, even ideation of things that you might want to do on your device, whether it's your phone or PC, you may not want that going to the cloud, right? Because you're worried about your personal IP, right? And so really, when it comes to personalization, latency, or kind of real timeliness of the response that you need or the interaction, that's really, really true in the case of the car, right? If you're using AI in a vehicle, oftentimes what it may be doing for you or helping you do doesn't have time to go to the cloud to get that response, right? Because milliseconds matter, especially when you're driving, right? And so I think there'll be kind of natural use case driven examples of, hey, the computational capabilities are on device. What you need to do or what you want to do can happen on device, doesn't need to go to the cloud, and you would prefer it that way. And that will drive sort of, I think, what sort of stays in that world versus what kind of goes out and then kind of comes back. Even, ChatGPT today being 100% cloud driven, oftentimes, it takes a while for you to get a response back if there's a lot of people using it. Also, cloud-based AI has cost implications, and it has sustainability implications, and it has energy implications, and so AI is going to have to become more efficient as it explodes. And so we can't just keep building power plants and data centers and everything like that. So the hybridness of AI, or putting the use cases where they best can be performed in the most efficient manner, is going to make sense to everybody, no matter who you're talking about. And obviously we have that history of really, really operating at the edge for so many years, and being able to balance compute performance and power the way we have been able to do it is going to serve us well in this sort of hybrid AI world. Yeah,
so the future is going to be hybrid, and the cloud cannot replace the edge, and likewise, the edge cannot replace the cloud.
Right.
Okay, so Qualcomm's technology is really in everything. I think that this is what some people didn't realize, is it's not just in the phone, in the laptop, it's also in all of these IoT devices, and also in cars. Right. So let's talk about cars for a second.
Sure.
You guys have the digital chassis, which is the Snapdragon's platform on the car, including the hardware and the software, right? And basically what you guys are doing is just putting a powerful computer inside of a car, right? And it can achieve many, many things, but the first one, most obvious one, is digital cockpit. Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about that? What's that?
Sure. Yeah, so the digital chassis is sort of our way of taking kind of all of our platform capabilities and sort of putting a wrapper around them in the context of automotive, right? Used to be cars were developed from a mechanical chassis kind of up, but in the future, and even now, and it's continuing to be even more true, is car makers are thinking about building their vehicles or designing their vehicles with a digital sort of chassis out sort of mentality, and especially in the case of EVs and hybrids. So that was the way of taking our cockpit capabilities, our connectivity capabilities, our car to cloud, et cetera, and kind of putting a wrapper around them. Within the digital chassis solution is our digital cockpit platform, right? And that's really the platform that drives sort of a lot of the interface and interactivity between the driver and the vehicle, and sometimes the vehicle and its environment. But that's really sort of going to be the nerve center right, of your driving experience, your digital driving experience. And as cars become more and more computers on wheels, as you said, and more digital living spaces, or the next living space, in some cases, the digital cockpit is going to be really important for that. So it's really a combination of our platforms, our Snapdragon digital cockpit platforms, the software on top of those platforms, and even the service connectivity into some services like Salesforce or whatever that the car maker wants to sort of offer back to the driver. It also creates this environment for upgradability and updatability, so that your car doesn't become obsolete as fast, because the capabilities of the vehicle can continue to improve.
That's
right, with downloads and over-the-air software updates and things like that.
Yeah. So what digital cockpit can do, kind of like a OS, like a computer inside of a car, I feel like the natural follow-up question to that some people might have is, how is that different from Apple CarPlay and Android Auto? Right? Well, technically it's very different. CarPlay and Android Auto basically mirrors your phone. It doesn't really have its own OS, but the processing happens on the phone. For most people, is fine with that. So why is Android Auto and Apple CarPlay not enough?
Yeah, well, if I'm a car maker, right, I would say that since I'm the brand that the consumer buys, and the affinity they have towards my brand, whether it's, Cadillac or Ford or NIO, right, or Tesla, is they bought a Tesla for a reason. They bought a Cadillac for a reason. They have an affinity to the brand. And if I'm the car maker, I want that brand experience to extend, right? Not to just the outside of the car and the color of the car and the design of the vehicle and the model, but to the experience that they're going to have with that Cadillac or with that Tesla. That speaks to the digital experiences that a driver has or a passenger has in the vehicle. And if I'm the car maker, I want to own that experience. Right. So so I'm particularly not interested in having another brand disintermediate me.
Got it. Yeah.
Right. And so being able to offer a full solution, hardware, software, and services that is where you don't need to necessarily have a phone or other device involved is very advantageous for the car brands to continue to provide value to drivers and passengers. So that's one point. Second point is to have the capabilities on car, right, on device, on car, is a lot different. As you said, you don't have to worry about plugging you're charging your phone in order for it to interact with the vehicle. Sometimes you can activate CarPlay or Android Auto through Bluetooth. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you have to hardwire in. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. It's not perfect. But if the car maker can integrate some of these services into the vehicle experience, they're just going to be more consistent. Right, they're going to be they're going to be more available on a consistent basis, and you're not going to have to depend on that connectivity issue that may or may not end up being an issue. Oh, my battery just died. Oh, I didn't plug it in to charge it, or I forgot my cable. Whatever. So, and I think the auto brands that are doing, I think the most interesting work around this are the ones that are doing both. Right. So if you look at NIO, for example, NIO has their AI agent, and they have their little home Nomi little robot guy at the top of the dashboard, but they also have a phone, a NIO phone. Everything powered by Snapdragon, which obviously brings its own set of advantages through our seamless experiences of Snapdragon to Snapdragon. But they're sort of kind of creating this environment where there's a lot of stuff you can do in the NIO, whether you have the phone or not, but also if you bring your NIO phone and you integrate it into the experience, you can do a lot of other things. So I think that they're combining the two. But more and more you see, obviously automakers wanting to own that experience end to end. They want to own that long-term customer sort of relationship, right? Beyond just the purchase of the vehicle and then I'll see you in 4 or 5 years, right? When your lease is up or when you need to buy a new car, they want to have an ongoing relationship with their drivers and with their purchasers. And this gives them the capability to do that through other things versus just lease payments or repairs. right, or service. It's, hey, now Cadillac, you can talk to your customer, you can interact with your customer on an ongoing basis in new ways. Isn't that exciting for your brand? And so that's sort of the advantage for the car makers.
That's a good point.
And I think, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, it seemed like before we sort of kind of came out with this concept of digital chassis, and before we introduced to automakers how we can help them, enable them to be more holistic in their driving experience and their digital car experience, that I think there was a prevailing narrative that, well, people are just going to plug their phones in and just use the mirrored screen and just use the same apps. It's just easier, right? And I think that's kind of now reversed itself. There's still integration, obviously, of those services and those apps, and of your phone in vehicle, but now you can do other things, and so I think it's going to be a good mix.
Okay, so I feel like having a powerful processor in a car doesn't just power games or YouTube on a car. It also has a very important other function, which is the assisted driving, right? ADAS and AD solution,
right?
The driver assistance and autonomous driving,
right?
So you guys also have solution for that, but I want to understand more how you provide this technology to the car companies, because other companies like Tesla, they own the full stack themselves. They integrate everything. They have the car, they have the software, they have the hardware. You guys are providing a technology to a car company. You guys are not selling cars.
Right.
So how exactly do you partner with car companies to, what exactly is the partnership look like?
Sure. And Tesla is a perfect example of kind of a technology company that manifests its technology through a vehicle, right? Whereas legacy auto brands are car companies that aren't necessarily technology companies, but they know they have to integrate technology into their vehicles. So, and some of them have tried to do it on their own, and they've found out how difficult it is. So we forged great partnerships. We literally work with every car brand on planet Earth, including Tesla, and we have either part or all of our digital chassis solutions implemented across pretty much every major auto brand, whether you're talking global brands, where you're talking more domestic brands like in China or in India with like Mahindra and others. And so we've got this great vast experience. We've announced this $45 billion pipeline of automotive design wins across the solutions. One of the big pieces of that solution, which is emerging and becoming bigger part of our business, is Snapdragon Ride. Right? And Snapdragon Ride is really our driver's assistance ADAS sort of stack. And we've also integrated that Snapdragon Ride with our digital cockpit, because we think from an efficiency standpoint and from an interactivity standpoint, to be able to merge those two together and have those two be seamlessly integrated is going to be important for both delivery of services and experiences for drivers and passengers, but also for the car companies themselves, and to make driving more safe and to make the experience better. So we kind of offer this integrated solution that no one else can really offer. And so the more automakers see the value of holistic, sort of digital chassis solution engagement with us, I think the better they can deliver to their customers.
Just to clarify, the solution includes both software and hardware, right?
And services.
And services.
Yeah, so we have our services platform too. So, but yes, software and hardware. And if you look at driver's assistance, and there's the spectrum, right? And in the industry they refer to it as like level 1 through level 4, right? Level 1 being the lowest level of assistance, level 4 being full autonomy. And some car brands kind of go up to that level 4, like Tesla with autopilot and some others. And then some are sort of still kind of stuck at level 1, level 2. And sometimes it's by model, right? It's by price point. Kind of how much assistance is sort of available to the driver. And then in some cases, it's also upgradable, right? You can add more and more assistance to your car, which we offer that capability, right, through our platforms, which is great from a upsell perspective for the automakers, right, to continue to make the experience better for their drivers. But where we see the mass sort of assistance for the masses is really going to be around this level 2, level 3 sort of area where it's assisted driving, but not full autonomy. We're years away from that, I think, in mass, right, adoption.
What can that do?
It's all the sensors that, it can tell if you're driving erratically and you may be tired and it suggests that you pull over. It can understand the environment around you and provide assisted braking, right? Or warnings and notifications about hazards and things like that. Pedestrians can interact with the environment more seamlessly and more proactively, and provide you sort of steering without you having to have your hands on the wheel for certain periods of time. Think of like, some call it, Ford refers to it as Blue Cruise or whatever, and GM has their own sort of solution for it, and different car companies are calling it different things. But that's sort of that where we think that'll be on every model, right? From the most inexpensive cars eventually, even up to premium luxury cars, and then you kind of tip over into that full autopilot mode, which we've all seen, we've all heard about, and some people actually do use today. But as I said, there's all sorts of issues and challenges and opportunities with full autonomy when it comes to personal vehicles as well as when it comes to transportation. Right? Obviously, safety being the biggest concern, interactivity with the environment, and then how you can switch back and forth between autonomy and driver control, right? Those things are, I think, still iterating in a lot of cases. And then there's this whole idea, especially in some parts of the world, where driving is very personal for people, right? Cars are very personal. It's why there's so many brands and so many models. It's because people have an affinity for both a car brand as well as models within brands. Like I only drive, a Ford Mustang, or I only drive a BMW 5 Series, or I only drive a whatever. So they have that affinity, and they like to drive. People like to drive their cars. Where a lot of this stuff is going to manifest itself very, very opportunistically is, we're seeing traffic for like 3 hours or 2 hours or whatever, because you're commuting and you're going like 5 miles an hour, for an hour and a half. And hey, well, why don't I get some other stuff done while I'm sitting here in traffic? That's where a lot, and I can free up my hands to maybe eat or do something else, because it's okay, it's safe, it's I don't have to worry about getting in an accident or having something go wrong. So we think opportunity there will we'll get to full autonomy in a lot of use cases, obviously, over time. But we think in the near term, this L2, L3 kind of assisted driving is really where it's going to explode across, every price tier.
Got it. So you guys do have a vision for level 4 autonomous driving, offering that to the car partners to let them be able to drive itself like a Tesla, right? Yeah. I mean, I think like I said, I think we believe in it in a lot of different use cases, whether it's robotaxis or whether it's mass transit, or whether it's an individual driving or not driving their vehicle on full autopilot. I think we believe that there's a market there, and that obviously we're seeing it prove itself out in use cases such as Tesla and Waymo and other types of applications. So it's not like it's not going to happen. It's going to happen, and it's kind of already happening. You guys are working toward that?
So working towards that. Our platforms keep getting more and more technologically advanced, more and more capable, more and more powerful. And so, as we just introduced new chips this last Snapdragon Summit last year in Hawaii for automotive, we're pushing the envelope. We're bringing our Orion CPU into our automotive roadmap, right? Going to bring more compute power in performance to those platforms. So we'll push up through level 3 and eventually into level 4 and offer a full ADAS stack. We have joint development going on with BMW on some solutions that we're going to be talking about later this year with them. that we're going to be actually bringing to market later this year, which we're really excited about. Not just for BMW, but the rest of the OEM ecosystem can utilize that stack. So we're excited about that, and that's coming up in September this year. So excited about that.
That's super exciting. I really want self-driving car to become a reality as fast as it can. Because
do you live like in a big city?
Yeah.
So you spend a lot of time like just commuting? Yeah.
Well, yeah. So, well, I know predictions are hard,
right?
But if you had to put a number to it, how many years do you think before Qualcomm can offer like a level 4?
Ooh. Well, I mean, I think it's less about our ability to offer level 4. Is the market ready for level 4 at mass, at scale? Yeah. And so, because I think we have got lots of partnerships, we have lots of, like I said, joint development going on with a lot of different partners. So I think the capability for us to offer a solution that could work up to level 4 is short term. Mm-hmm. The market adoption in mass, I think, is longer out there. There's everything from regulatory challenges and environments that have to be kind of resolved, to even personal psychological things that have to kind of in drivers' minds that have to be resolved. And like some things it'll make super good sense immediately in sort of transportation, right? Like robotaxis and things like that. And we're already seeing that kind of happen. And everyone that I've ever talked to, obviously in the States we have Waymo, right? And it's expanding to more cities. Everyone that I've ever talked to that's ridden a Waymo thinks it's the best thing in the world, right? At first it seems a little scary, like there's nobody literally in the front seat. But after they've ridden in one, they're like, oh, this was great. And then of course it's a lot cheaper than taking a taxi or taking an Uber, because there's no person there to have to pay. So it's even more economical for some folks to engage in a self-driven experience, or an autonomous-driven experience. So I think it's going to be fun and interesting to see kind of what happens over the next few years. But I think over the next 4 to 6 years, we'll really see where it's all going. But we'll be there. We'll be ready to support whatever the market needs.
Yeah, you talked a lot about robo-taxis. So you guys are also like internally planning this, like thinking about this.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, we think about every use case and scenario and where we think there's market opportunities. And the benefit we have is that we're a global company, and so we get to see what's going on all around the world. We see where China has pushed the envelope on innovation in some areas. We see kind of what India is thinking, right? These countries with big populations that need the ability to move people around in different ways. And then in some cases where, countries with legacy infrastructure and how they're thinking about this, like the US, for example, in the case of Waymo or, bus transportation or whatever that might be. So we get to see kind of where things are headed. And again, different regions are even sometimes ahead of others or behind others. But we've been able to build this portfolio and this pipeline based on our capabilities to serve kind of everybody's needs. So I think we've got our thumb squarely on the heartbeat of what's going on.
I see. And as the CMO of Qualcomm, working at a company that's really pushing the frontier of AI right now, you've definitely seen a lot of exciting tech, right? So what excites you most about the future currently?
Oh, wow. So I obviously, AI is exciting from the perspective of how it's going to change paradigms, right? How it's going to shift paradigms and how it's going to create that next layer of digital interaction or interaction with digital spaces and humans. Because, we operate kind of closer to the human, right? Because, the edge is kind of closer where the humans are. And so it's always intriguing. We used to be a company that was really excited about the next generation of wireless, right? Because we led that transition from 2G to 3G and 3G to 4G and 4G to 5G. And we're as soon as 5G launched, we were starting to invest in 6G. So that's going to be important as well, especially in the context of AI. But I think what we're really excited about is just how is AI going to yet again be an inflection point for technology, how people use technology in their lives, and where is that going to take, experiences. So that's, I think, the biggest piece of excitement.
Yeah. Well, Don, thank you so much for coming to my show.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks a lot for having me.